Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Aaron. I am the pastor of small groups here at Declaration Church. Thank you for joining us. This is Table Talk, something new we are launching here on Facebook. And listen, we really encourage you to engage with us, to comment, to ask questions. Right now, we're online. We're gonna be responding back to you. So please make sure you say hello and let us know if you have any questions or thoughts as we go along here. This week we were in Luke chapter 14.
Luke chapter 14.
And I'm gonna let you speak a little bit to that, but you use Luke chapter 14 and the banquet. A man's throwing a big banquet. He's throwing a party, and his servant is going out and inviting specific people,
Right.
and they all have excuses.
Yeah.
And basically he says, "Hey, I want my house full." And so I just wanted to kind of dive back into that a little bit and get some additional thoughts from you.
I can try.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously, going into this new discipleship, generosity initiative, maybe for some that might just kind of be catching up. Maybe you weren't there Sunday, man, and we, of all Sundays, we had streaming problems.
That's right.
So we weren't able to broadcast live.
Right.
I know I was getting text messages from my mom all morning going, "Where are you?" However, it is available. So I really if you've never ever done this before, but you heard me say it, listen, this is one of the most important ones. Please go back and watch that. You can find it on declaration.org under watch, under the sermons area, or you can find it on YouTube from the Declaration page. So go back, watch week 1 of Setting the Table. It is, like I said, it's a discipleship and generosity initiative. We've got 2 goals. In fact, we've got some resources that we have available at the church at this very table.
Yeah.
Actually, this is the very table that sits in our foyer that you pass by when you come in on Sunday morning. And we did it for that reason. We'd be using it for table talk. We'd use it at the church. And all these resources are there. You've got our workbook, our Setting the Table workbook. You've got the vision summary. And you'll learn all about the what and the why. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? We've got 2 goals in this generosity and this discipleship initiative, which is primary goal being 100% of us, whether you're part of the online family, or whether you're physically on the campus of Declaration, or whether you're in Tomball and you're one of those families that are just interested in a potential church plant that is to come out in Tomball area from Declaration Church, come be a part of this with us.
Yeah.
We want 100% engagement. Let me tell you what that means. That doesn't necessarily mean what you might think it means. What I'm thinking that it means is, even if you've never taken a step in the direction of biblical generosity, tithing generosity, the way God has asked us to do it, even if that means you've never given before through Declaration to the Lord, you would start now. Mm-hmm. And starting now means I'm engaging, I'm participating. But even more so, we're going to go the next 6 weeks together, as we launched it with Luke 14. We're going to go the next 6 weeks together. And on Palm Sunday, we're asking the Lord to speak and to move, because the secondary goal of Setting the Table would be the total generosity over 2 years. We're asking the Lord to actually blow the lid off this number, which just sounds astronomically crazy. But
right.
Here's the deal. If you're not dreaming big, you're not doing God things, right?
That's right.
And we believe that God put this number on our heart, $5.8 million, which, again, is a lot of money. I do believe God's going to blow that off.
Yeah, I do
He's
too.
going to blow the doors off this thing. And here's why. We've watched God work in such incredible ways through COVID. Mm-hmm. We've watched God work through providing the property that we have purchased. Where everywhere around us, if we look, just to kind of build our faith for a minute, when we were looking for property, there were 3 pieces that we found. There were a few more, but 3 pieces that that could make sense for all sorts of things, topography, watershed, everything. And 2 of those pieces were north of $8 to $10 million.
Wow. And
they were only like 10 to 15 acres each.
Right.
This property that God presents to us, 86 acres.
Yeah.
$2.05 million.
Crazy.
With the promise of 27 additional free acres if we were to close by the end of 2019. That's exactly what we did. God provided. To date, we've spent $1.2 million. We're sitting on about $12 million of assets. Don't tell me that God doesn't do big things.
Yeah.
He's a supernatural God. So this second primary, or this secondary goal, I should say, primary being 100% engagement. Secondary, $5.8 million over 2 years, does different things for us as we build kingdom together. And unapologetically, that's what we're about. You know, we've got some new values, cultural values that we talk about. You know, obviously, irresistible hospitality, radical generosity. Why? Because we're called to build the kingdom. And we believe that at God's great banqueting table, he wants everyone there, for God so loved the world. And so, very important. And so that's the whole kind of what is setting the table? Well, it's us getting our hearts right and getting our hearts aligned and around God's heart for the nations, God's heart for people, God's heart for partying, because he loves a good party. Obviously, there's going to be a great party at the banquet. I mean, but we really want to get our heart around God's call on our lives, God's desire for us to walk in obedience. God's desire for us to love the things he loves, and that includes people. And so that's really what the whole, discipleship part of this thing is calling people to a deeper level of trust and obedience to the Lord, but also calling people's heart back to God.
Yeah.
We can say we love God, but I think that the way that our schedule looks and the way our checkbook looks will really reflect how we love God.
That's right.
And so we're just going to unapologetically challenge that right now, because we believe that we're in a time frame where time is short. You know, I'm not going to sit here and start trying to unpack eschatology and tell us, that we know the date and time. We don't know the date and time. All we can see is the birth pains of the end days. And we know we've been in the last days since, some of the things we read in the Bible, they were saying we're in the last days.
Right.
And so time is short, man. I mean, talk about wars and rumors of wars. Talk about technology, reaching unreached people groups. I mean, we are in a moment right now where one man can flip a switch and provide internet for an entire continent.
Right. Yeah.
I think
Crazy.
that at any given moment, we could reach every unreached people group,
right,
as long as we can get technology in their hand, train them how to use it, and missionaries go. I mean, the whole thing, right? I mean, there's so many things. But we are close.
We are close
to Jesus coming back.
Yeah.
To the great banquet.
Yeah.
And so we launched this whole thing this week with Luke 14. And obviously, like, you kind of began that process by saying, this banquet, he's throwing this party. People began to give excuses. I don't know if you said that while we were doing this, or if we were riffing about that earlier.
Maybe.
But people began to give these excuses why they couldn't come. And how tragic is that? I remember on Sunday, the thing that really jumped out at me is, people would rather give an excuse than embrace their eternity.
Right.
And honestly, I think that we all tend to do that sometimes. God may call us to something, right? He may put an opportunity in front of our path that says, this is the way I really desire you to walk. And the question is like Abram, Genesis 12, when God calls us to that thing, and he tells us, I'm not going to give you the coordinates. I'm not giving you all the answers, right? I'm not going to give you the safety net here.
Right.
I'm going to ask you to step out in a radical step of faith. Maybe that means foregoing familiar. Maybe that means leaving behind comfortable and convenient. Maybe that means even something to Abram that was very difficult in that culture of leave your father's house, walk away from your heritage, walk away from your inheritance, walk away from the safety net of the family unit, which was so, we think the family unit is important in the American culture. In our society, so this is what God is calling Abram to do, right? And that's what God's calling us to do. And so, we can come up with a lot of excuses to not be obedient to the Lord. And we can even, at least I can only speak for me, I can justify that excuse,
right,
and try to make it sound holy.
Right. Yeah. And we see those in the excuses that they give.
I just got married.
Some of them are good. Some of them are very naturally.
Sure.
I can totally understand that. Some of them not so good.
Right.
But it doesn't matter.
It's an excuse.
Yeah.
And it's just, God, I'm not going to do this.
Right.
That's what it is. And so then we see that as the parable went, Jesus is telling the story, and we see the excuses happen. Well, then the master who is having the banquet says, okay, then I want you to go into the city. I want you to invite anybody you can. And so that's exactly what this servant in the story did. And he went into the city. He invited everyone he could, brought them back because it was ready. The banquet was ready, and there was still room.
Still room. And
the master said, go now into the country, invite everyone you can. And that's what he did. And so what we saw last week, if I just kind of summed it, but I don't want to sum it up so much you don't watch it. Go watch it.
That's right.
But what we saw was a few things. Number one, we know that God loves everybody, and God wants everyone at the table. He just does. John 3:16. He loves the world, and he sent Jesus to die for the world. And so God's heart is that, and there's this line, and I've talked about it a few times, and we actually see it in John 14. If you really look, there it is in John 14. Actually, it's right here. We're in Luke 14, but in John 14, it basically gives us this indicator that, man, Jesus doesn't want heaven without us. There's this line in this song that caused a lot of theological debate, which was, what a beautiful name it is. The very first lyric says, you didn't want heaven without us. And people blew up over this.
That's weird.
It is weird. But when you read John 14, don't let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God. Trust also in me. There is more than enough room in my Father's home. If this were not so, I would have told you that I'm going to prepare a place for you.
Yeah.
I'm going to prepare a place for you. When everything is ready, I will come and get you so that you will always be with me where I am.
Right. That's it.
He wants us where he is.
He wants us there with him.
And so it's like we often say, we're not the point of the story, but we are such an important part of the story.
Right.
And God wants everyone at his table. And so with that said, man, there's room. There's still room because there's still time.
Yeah.
But time is urgent.
Yeah.
And with that said, our role is to be the servant in the story. God has sent us now to go invite everyone we can, which means that we need to live a life that would show God to be attractive in every way.
Right.
And so that's what this whole thing is about. That's what Sunday was about. Man, we have 5 more weeks, actually, I guess, through Palm Sunday. And we're going to call that Commitment Sunday. We'll talk more about that as we go. But we really do want you guys to engage with us in every way on this. Now, in the workbook we gave out, and if you don't have one yet, we'll have these for you on Sunday at the church at this very table. It's our Setting the Table. I don't know what you call it.
Setting the
table booth, hub.
Yeah.
Setting the table. But, there'll be shirts there as well. There'll be commitment cards, all the extra stuff that you're going to need in order to fully engage, because that's the primary goal, is that we all engage in this. We commit. We are part of this together. But in that workbook, there's day-by-day things that you can be a part of, reading, praying. There's a little, some suggested worship songs that will hopefully kind of catalyze our heart around some of these themes that we're talking about with that week. And so we want you to be a part of that. Use this workbook, please, and engage with this and engage with the Lord, And so as we go over the next few weeks, we're going to get deeper into this. We're going to talk more about it. We're going to talk about the commitment card, and we're going to talk about, our lifestyle, our generosity. We're going to talk about our leadership, if you will. Some of us don't believe we're leaders. We don't understand that we're table setters.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is that's who God created us to be, table setters.
Yeah.
What do you got? You got any thoughts?
I want to talk about this one line in this just really quick, and it's I always like to point out, the seriousness of situations, and I know we're the servant in the story, but it's really interesting in verse 24 of Luke 14. For I tell you, none of those men who were invited shall taste my banquet.
Yes.
And he's talking about the ones that made the excuses.
See,
right?
we didn't get there Sunday.
Right.
We stopped at 23.
Right.
But that is such a good verse.
Yeah.
And it's a scary verse.
It's a scary verse, but it speaks of the urgency.
So, yes, it does. And contextually, that's where I got, don't co-op your eternity with an excuse.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's why I said that very statement.
Yeah.
Is because for none of those I first invited will even get the smallest taste of my banquet.
Yeah.
That is a tragic statement in the Scripture.
Right.
But I think it's something that we need to weigh.
Yeah.
As we contemplate even, what am I going to engage in this? Am I going to be a part of the things that God is inviting us to do together as a church? And that's not, I'm just being honest, that is not a sales pitch, right, for anything else other than, look, we don't want anything from you. We want it for you. We want it for your family. We want it for the depth of your walk with Jesus. We want it for the fact that we know, just like God told Abram, if you will obey me, I will bless you. But the point of that is not for our gain or our possessions. The point of that is so that we would be a blessing.
Right.
That's the reason why God blesses, so that we in turn will be a blessing.
Absolutely.
And so, again, that's another part of setting the table, is understanding biblically, what is it that why has God entrusted me to steward these things? They're not my things.
Right.
Do you know how many times I talk with people and they're like, well, my money and and I'm like, I mean, I hear you. You did a job, you got a wage. Okay.
Right.
But language is important. And I would say, man, yes, the Lord is, This is all God. Everything about our life. And if you don't believe me, just tell me what you're going to take with you when you die.
That's right.
Right. And so it's all the Lord. And so, part of that is under having the right mindset about, man, when God blesses us, whether that's material possessions, finances, or whatever. There's a lot of ways we could define blessing. But when God blesses us, it's to be a blessing.
That's right.
It's to be a blessing.
Right.
Even children, culturally, back in that day, I think of children. They were the blessing. Well, what was that? Why were they? How were they? Well, how they were a blessing is lineage,
Right.
heritage, legacy.
Right.
And that's some of the very same things that we're trying to challenge right here. We got to look beyond today. We got to look beyond ourselves. We got to look beyond our situation and start thinking about eternity.
Right.
And legacy. And so that's kind of something else that this is about.
Yeah, that's good stuff. I mean, I love the picture of setting the table. I love the picture that Luke 14 paints for us to go out and literally invite everybody. And the urgency is not only inviting them, but explaining, hey, no, this is what we're inviting you to.
Yeah.
Not a country club.
Nope.
We're not inviting you to a church organization.
Right.
We're inviting you to a family.
That's right.
To a party.
That's right.
To a place where you can come and every question, everything that you've ever hoped for and dreamed for, found in the person of Jesus Christ. That's what we're inviting you to.
Yeah.
And helping people see that, so that when they start beginning to throw out the very natural and justifiable excuses,
Right.
it actually calls out to the deep within them that says, yeah, I don't know what it is, but I've got to at least go see what it is.
Right. Right.
And that's our role in this.
Well, and I even think about our primary and secondary goals of this initiative. And one could say, well, yeah, but isn't this just about building our campus, building our building? No, it's really not.
Right.
It's not about building the church. Please hear me. It's about being the church first not in our activity, our identity. It's about being the church, doing what God has called us to do, doing what he's commissioned us to do, doing what we're now being challenged, I think, to do and be.
Right.
But even beyond that, it's still not about building a building. It's about building God's kingdom. And so the building, one day, when that comes in his time, that is just a tool. It is a resource.
Right.
It will be here today and gone tomorrow.
That's right.
It is it's a shell of a thing. It's a structure. What's important is what happens in that thing, what happens on those grounds.
Right.
And that's building the kingdom. So, that's why it's our secondary goal. It's just a byproduct of obedience.
That's right.
And that's what I said. We're not responsible for, the outcome. All we're responsible for is our obedience.
That's right.
So we take our steps of obedience.
Yep.
So in the workbook, because we got to wrap this up.
That's right.
Statistically speaking, we are 10 minutes over already.
Oh,
but
okay.
But if you look at the workbook, page 23, there's 5 questions there that I really want you to engage. So, look at these questions. What's the most humbling truth about Jesus inviting you to his table? Have you taken your seat at the table? Maybe you got to start right here. Do I really know Jesus, or do I just know about him? Do I have a relationship with Jesus, or do I have a relationship with the church? When you think about Jesus giving his life so that you could take a place at the table of God, man, what's the most humbling truth about that? What does that speak to you? I think sick people know the depth of their need. And when you realize what you've been saved from and what you're being called to, man, that does something in your heart. So answer the question from that perspective. Maybe what's the biggest struggle that you're facing right now in order to accept not just his invitation at the table, maybe that's it, but maybe what's the biggest struggle you're facing right now to accept his call in this moment? The struggle of what you believe that he may be calling you to do personally or as a family. That's a big question.
Yeah.
Because this means this is a count the cost type of moment. And we know that, I acknowledge that. It's not easy. Anytime you start pressing into people's time and when you start pressing into finances, especially as the church, you want to default to all the ways that you would have a negative reaction. Man, I'm imploring you, don't do that. Let the Lord speak during this hour, because again, this is much bigger than this moment. This is legacy. This is eternity. This is your blessing to be a blessing. This is your legacy. This is your family. These are your children. I mean, there's so many things to consider first over offense or over, some sort of negative reaction. Allow the Lord to dictate your reaction. Number 2, how was feasting at Jesus' table changed your appetite for life? Once we truly taste and see the goodness of God, it's hard to have an appetite for anything else. Would you say this is true, of your life? Have you ever stopped to really compare the goodness of God to the things that we taste of this world? And where are you with that? What are some ways that you engage God daily for your spiritual nourishment? These are great questions. Please take time. And we would love for you to, chat with us right now even. We're going to have people that are answering you right there in the comments. So if you want to engage even right now, we absolutely would love for you to do that. In fact, next week, I would love to take some live, we're going to do some more promotion of this week, but I'd love to take some live questions if you'd be a part of this with us, 8 o'clock on Thursday. And just be ready and bring some things to the table that we can talk about together in real time. And so we'll do that. But look at this, page 23 of week 1 in your workbook. If you don't have this, email us. You can email table. I think it's the table. Is it the table or table?
I'm not sure.
Okay, then let's just do this. Email hello@declaration.org. That is safe. And then we'll get the table email address for you next week. But email us if you want more information. Some of this stuff you can see. Actually, you can see this digitally at settingthetable.org. And so all the information in the vision summary and the workbook is actually digitized at settingthetable.org. So we want to invite you to engage that as well.
Yeah, I would say, setting the table, this series, where we are, as we're wrapping this up, really God is calling all of us to really dive in and go deeper with Him. And our personal walk, our personal call, all of us on staff. Well, I mean, we're all walking through this together.
We are.
And God is taking us to new places.
And we aren't immune from this.
No,
this isn't just something we talk about. This is something we engage first and foremost.
Absolutely, we are.
I'll say this. I believe that this moment in time, even at Declaration Church, it's significant. It's defining for many ways. In many ways, it's defining, I think, for our church. It's one of those God calling us basically to the carpet to say, okay, who are you really going to be?
Yeah.
Do you mean what you say? Do you do what you say? And then secondly, I think it's a defining moment, personally for us. Are we going to be obedient to the Lord or not? Are we really? I mean, here's the thing. We've been in a season for the last 2+ years now where I believe God is sifted and He's shaken, and this is just another opportunity for God to sift and shake.
Yeah.
And you will see the ones basically that says, you know what, God, I'm gonna go with you. I'm gonna take the step.
Right.
I don't have the coordinates like Abram. I don't even understand what you're telling me on some level, but in faith, I'm going to take the step.
Yeah.
I'm going to engage you, and I think that's defining for no other real significant reason than personally for you and your life and your family, your legacy, that transcendent, indelible mark that you're going to leave behind for future generations. I've become more and more aware of. In fact, we don't have time for it. Remind me to talk about the funeral story.
Okay.
But I've become more and more aware of the steps of faith taken today, and the resonance that happens throughout time of that, the impact that it's made from one step of faith. I am sitting at this table today because of some steps of faith that my parents took way back when. And I know that they live their life because of steps of faith that their parents took way back. And I'm just telling you, Mom and Dad, there is nothing more important right now than you engaging God. You can teach your kids a lot of things. They've got a very small percentage chance to ever be a professional sports player. They've got a 100% chance of standing before the Lord. Yep. And not only that, they've got to live a life. They've got a whole life ahead of them. And they're going to have children. You're going to have grandchildren one day. The things that you put in today, you will reap tomorrow, I promise. The seeds you plant today will bring harvest. So we need to start thinking about the time God gives us. We need to start thinking about the money that God asks us to steward, and seeing what is our calendar and what is our checkbook saying about our devotion to the Lord. Yeah. Where is our heart? Right. And so, again, unapologetically, humbly, and lovingly, I'm saying, man, let's all be a part of this. 100% engagement.
100%.
100%.
Well, thank you guys for joining us here at Table Talk. Again, Thursdays, 8 o'clock, jump on here, engage with us, ask questions, make comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And man, it's been fun. And I think we'll see you next week. All right? We'll see you next
See
time.
you Sunday first. But
Yeah, we'll see you Sunday first. That's right.
All right.
And then we'll see you next Thursday.
Yeah.